Okay. So when we talk about the endocrine system, this is our body's way of regulating conditions, one of the ways. And the endocrine system works as a messenger. So it works using hormones. That's the key messenger molecule that the endocrine system uses. So, what's that? Isaiah, can you show? It's a big, thick packet.
I think you probably just got it.
Yeah, it was probably in the stuff I left on the board for you last week.
Oh.
You probably got it. So, if you think about the types of molecules that we talked about, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, which of those molecules is the shape the key factor? Which of those molecules has a very complicated shape that allows it to work?
You may have a chance to have another copy of that.
I don't think
Okay, that's all right.
I'm right over here. Hold on.
Mrs. Eisenhut was looking at mine, and she's not here today.
Oh, yeah, I did.
She's not.
No.
Who's that? Who's in there for?
What, honey?
Who's in there for?
I don't know. Thank you so much.
No problem. So, hormones are molecules that are made of proteins. And the thing you always have to think when you're thinking about proteins, it's their shape that's important. Proteins have a complex, three-dimensional shape. So we're talking about the human endocrine system. Color is bad on this, isn't it? On my screen, it looks red. The words. So the endocrine system is our body system, which helps communication, and it works by making these proteins called hormones in special glands in our body, endocrine glands we call them. And those hormones are made by these glands, and then they go into our blood where they can circulate all around throughout our whole body. And they can affect different tissues. And so the important thing to understand, one of the important things, is that it's the shape of the hormone which matches with what we call a receptor molecule. On our cells, on the cell membrane, there's a variety of these molecules called receptor molecules. And they have a specific shape which hormones can connect with and cause some change to happen. If a cell doesn't have the receptor molecules for a specific hormone, it doesn't get affected by them. If it does, then it will be affected. And so you can see that in these diagrams. So here, look at this lower right corner. Here we have a cell from an endocrine gland. It's making this little blue dot hormone. It sends it into the blood, where it circulates to all different cells. And when it binds to these target cells, it does so because they have a proper receptor molecule. We can see it over here as well. So this cell has receptors for hormone A, but it doesn't have a receptor for this other hormone, hormone B. So this hormone isn't going to affect this cell. It is going to affect this cell because this has the proper receptor. And this cell will be affected by both of them, and this cell will only be affected by hormone B. So that's why these hormones can be specific, because they only affect cells that have the proper receptor molecules. So hormones are really important in our bodies. They regulate our hunger. They regulate our metabolism, our growth, our physical development. They regulate reproduction. The hormones help us, our bodies, do all of these different things. Now, sometimes hormones take a little longer than the nervous system to communicate from one part to another, because in order for our hormones to work, it has to make this protein, send it into the blood, needs to get to the cells and then affect them. So that takes a little bit of time, whereas the nervous system works a little bit quicker. And so the glands in our body that make these hormones, we call them endocrine glands. They're these specialized glands that have cells which produce different hormones. Now, testosterone, for example, is a hormone. Insulin is a hormone. There's human growth hormone is another one. So there's many types of hormones, and we'll talk about some examples. Now, some of these hormones bind to a receptor on the cell membrane, and then that receptor changes some things inside the cell, has an effect. Other hormones actually can go through the cell membrane to a receptor inside of the cell. Depends on the type of hormone. Steroid hormones are an example of these types of hormones that can go right through the cell membrane, attach to a receptor, and then have some impact on the cell. And so our endocrine system works on what we call a system of feedback. We're going to be working with feedback today. Feedback is a process in which the level of one hormone causes some change which might affect another hormone to regulate conditions. So to simplify things, your thyroid gland produces certain hormones, thyroid hormones, which regulate your metabolism. And there's a series of other hormones which can increase or reduce the levels of this thyroxine hormone. So there's feedback to keep conditions at the proper level. Human insulin is another example. We'll be talking a lot about that. What do you know about insulin? Familiar with insulin at all? What does it regulate in our body? Do you know anybody that has to give themselves insulin? When do people have to give themselves insulin? When they're what?
Blood pressure.
Not blood pressure, something else. Another blood
Sugar.
Their blood sugar is not being controlled. What do we call the disease when a person doesn't regulate their blood sugar level properly?
Diabetes.
Yeah, diabetes. Diabetes is a endocrine disorder. It's when, for some reason, the body is not able to regulate blood glucose levels. And it can be caused by different factors. But one of the causes of diabetes is the cells in the liver that make insulin die. And they're not functioning properly. And normally, the way our bodies regulates our blood sugar is, let's say, last night you ate a whole bunch of candy when you got home. What was happening to your blood sugar level eventually? It's going way up, right? You ate all this candy, your blood glucose levels were rising. Your body can measure your blood glucose level. Your pancreas can measure it. It says, uh-oh, too much sugar in the blood. That can be really bad for you. It can damage your nerves, could be hard on your kidneys, can have impacts on your vision. So your body's trying to maintain homeostasis. It needs to bring your blood glucose level back down to a more normal level. And it does that by producing insulin. Your pancreas makes insulin, a hormone, which circulates all throughout your body. When insulin gets to your liver, it attaches to a receptor molecule. And that signal causes your liver to take in glucose from your blood and reduce your blood glucose level. And so eventually, your blood glucose level declines again. And then your pancreas says, oh, okay, we're okay now. And it shuts off this insulin. That process is called feedback. There's another process that does the opposite. Let's say, okay, you didn't eat this morning and you didn't eat lunch today and it's the end of the school day. What's probably happening to your blood sugar? It's dropping, right? You've used up all that sugar, that energy. You haven't been eating to replenish it. Once you do, hello.
Time tomorrow, leaving
5:15.
5:15.
Thank you. So your blood sugar level is low. Also, that's not good. You can get lightheaded. You can get tired. You can even pass out. And so your pancreas notices, blood sugar level is low. It starts making a different hormone, glucagon. When that hormone gets to your liver, it tells your liver, hey, we need more glucose in the blood. And your liver releases some. And your blood sugar level goes up. And that process turns off. So these two hormones are both working to keep your blood sugar level at the proper level. It may go up some and down some, but it's your body, if it's working properly, keeps it at about the right level. But in some people, it doesn't work properly. And that's when a person has diabetes, and they have to do other things to help regulate their own blood sugar. And so here's an example of this. This is a graph that shows blood glucose levels. On the left is the red line. So you could see, eat breakfast, blood sugar levels rise. Okay? But so do your insulin levels, which brings your blood sugar back down. Okay? And it goes up and down. You eat lunch, it rises. You eat dinner, it rises. And each time your blood glucose level rises, insulin is produced to help bring it back down. And so this is our body maintaining homeostasis. So diseases of our endocrine system include not just diabetes, but other things as well. But diabetes can be caused by different things. Some people start off and are born and have normal pancreas function. They don't have diabetes. And then something triggers their own body's immune system to attack these cells in the pancreas. Sometimes a virus can cause a person's cells in their pancreas to be destroyed. And then they may develop type 1 diabetes. And then they'll be diabetic for the rest of their life. Other times our bodies can become resistant to insulin. That's what type 2 diabetes, where some people typically develop it as they get older. Things like obesity and poor diet can lead to somebody whose body, it's not that they don't produce insulin, their body's not responding to it properly. But their end result is basically the same. They are unable to moderate their blood glucose level. So when a person does have diabetes, what are the things they need to do to control it? Okay?
Don't they have to not eat like any sugary food?
Well, they can eat food with sugar, but there's some things that other things they have to do. Like, does anyone know someone with diabetes or have a family member or something? What do they have to do like many times a day? Not several times a day. What?
Like their finger.
Why? What are they doing when they do that, Isaiah?
Seeing how high or low their blood pressure is.
Blood sugar. Yeah, their blood sugar levels. Yeah. They have a little thing, they prick their finger, get a drop of blood, put it on a little strip, put it in a machine, and it tells them their blood glucose level because they need to know. Okay, so when they test their blood glucose level, that will usually tell them what they need to do. If their blood sugar is too high, what do?
Inject insulin.
So they need to give themselves insulin. How they do that varies. Some people actually inject insulin into their body with a syringe and a needle. That's not as common anymore, Does anyone know other ways people can get insulin when they need it, other than injecting it? There's an insulin pump. Looks like a little device that you might wear on your belt or in your pocket. It has a little tube, and it goes to a patch on your skin, and you can use that to give yourself insulin. Some people have a little adhesive pod that they wear that can give them insulin when they need it. There's even insulin inhalers that some people use. So there's different ways you can get the insulin into your body. And also you might have to give yourself insulin based on what you eat. A person that has diabetes probably keeps track of what they're eating. And they know, okay, if I ate this sandwich for lunch, I need to give myself this amount of insulin to help regulate it. So they have to monitor. So basically, a person that has diabetes has to be their own pancreas by monitoring their blood sugar and giving themselves insulin when they need it, or by eating, certain foods when they need them. That's sort of how they regulate their own blood sugar. Probably in the near future, there will be an insulin pump that sort of automates most of that. Right now, you still, even if you have an insulin pump, you need to calculate and figure out how much, and you have to test your blood sugar still. But probably it's not too far off when the device does all of it for you. Monitors blood sugar, gives you the insulin you need, and almost acts like an artificial pancreas. Our thyroid gland is a gland that's in our neck. So it looks like a bow tie when you look at it. I think there's a picture somewhere. Yeah, this is it. It's in your neck. This one is the thyroid gland. And it produces hormones called thyroxine, which regulates our metabolism. And our metabolism is how our body uses energy. And sometimes people have a thyroid condition when they don't produce enough of these thyroid hormones, and their metabolism is very slow. And they might have a tendency to gain weight even if they're not eating a lot because their body's not using a lot of energy. Sometimes the endocrine gland can swell up to form what's called a goiter. Sometimes it can be caused by a lack of iodine. Our thyroid gland needs iodine in order to stay healthy. And if you don't have enough of it, it can start to swell up and can cause a thyroid condition. Do you know where we get iodine? If you ever look on a salt container, it sometimes says iodized salt, if you ever look. Next, they started putting iodine in salt to prevent people from getting iodine-based thyroid disorder. So that's why it's in salt. It's added in. It's not a natural part of salt. The opposite condition can also be true. A person can have an overactive thyroid gland. It produces too much of these hormones. Their metabolism is too fast. They have a very high heart rate. And so they might have difficulty maintaining a healthy body weight, and they might be very, very thin because their metabolism is so quick. And this causes its own problem. Okay, they could have high blood pressure or other disorders. And so this is what happened. This is like an extreme case. This is a person who has a thyroid disorder, and their thyroid gland is swelled up to this huge mass. Sometimes people have to have surgery where their thyroid gland might be removed, or parts of it have to be killed off with radioactive treatments to help solve some of these thyroid disorders. And this is glucose testing material. So this is a glucose monitor. These are glucose test strips where you prick your finger and put it in the machine to find your blood sugar level, and then you might have to administer insulin using a syringe. Some other disorders. We have this gland at the base of our brain called our pituitary gland. It produces a really important hormone called human growth hormone. Probably in you right now, your pituitary gland is probably producing a lot of human growth hormone. You're at an age when you're likely growing, right? If you've grown in the last year or so, the reason you've grown taller is because your pituitary gland is making human growth hormone. That goes through your whole body, through your blood, and when it gets to your bones, attaches to a receptor molecule, it signals them to start growing longer and your muscles to grow larger. And it's causing you to grow taller as you develop. All of that is part of our endocrine system. It's by this tiny little gland in our brain sending these signals to your bones and muscles saying, grow taller. Some people, that doesn't happen. Some people, their pituitary gland doesn't produce human growth hormone. What do you think happens in that case? You don't grow, right? It's sometimes causes what we call dwarfism, where a person's pituitary gland is not working properly and they don't grow to a normal height. Sometimes if it's caught early, they might get artificial human growth hormone to help them achieve a more normal height. Other times, the pituitary gland, often because of a tumor, produces too much human growth hormone. What do you think happens to those people?
Gigantism.
Yeah, they grow excessively tall. Normally, your pituitary gland, when you're whatever, 17 or 18 or 19, is going to stop producing as much human growth hormone, and you will have reached your maximum height. Sometimes people, it doesn't shut off, and they grow taller and taller and taller. Like when you think about like world record tallest person, or anyone know who this guy is? No.
I think I'm the only one.
Yeah, you and me. Who is it?
Andre the Giant
Yeah, that's Andre the Giant. You know him? How do you know him?
from wrestling. I've seen lots of movies.
Okay, yeah. So he was, I forget how tall Andre is. Oh, it's in this. He is 7'4", weighed 520 something pounds. He was a huge, huge guy. And he was so tall because he had an excess of human growth hormone produced in his pituitary gland, causing him to grow that tall. You know who this is?
Small boy.
This is from Game of Thrones. Peter Dinklage, I think his name
Yeah.
is. He has the opposite condition, in which his pituitary gland did not produce enough human growth hormone. He has dwarfism. And there's other endocrine disorders when your body produces too much of various hormones or not enough, and they all have impacts. Because our endocrine system is responsible for regulating all these things in our body. When it's not working properly, that causes negative consequences, diseases or disorders sometimes. All right, we'll stop there for a note.